every single day. The average human brain processes about 34 gigabytes of information.
Which is just a staggering number to even think about.
Right. I mean, that is roughly the equivalent of reading a novel every hour, on the hour, from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep.
That's nonstop.
No wonder your to-do list feels less like a schedule and more like a physical weight pressing on your chest by like 9 in the morning. Welcome to our deep dive.
What's fascinating here is that our biological hardware hasn't actually had a meaningful update in about 200,000 years.
Wow, so we're way behind.
Way behind. So we are running this ancient savanna-adapted operating system, and we're trying to use it to process push notifications, global news cycles, algorithmic social feeds, and just endless emails.
It's completely mismatched.
Exactly. The cognitive overload isn't a personal failing. It is a structural inevitability.
Okay, let's unpack this because if you're listening to this right now, you know exactly what that exhaustion feels like.
Oh, absolutely. Everyone feels it.
Yeah, you don't need us to tell you that the world is loud.
Yeah.
What you need is a shortcut to navigating this chaos without, having to move off the grid and live in a cabin somewhere.
Right, which isn't practical for anybody.
Exactly. And that is exactly our mission today. We're pulling the most critical insights from Darius Foreau's book, Focus on What Matters.
It's a great resource.
It really is. Now, Foreau leans heavily on ancient Stoic philosophy, but he maps it directly onto our modern digital architecture.
And the core premise is that we have essentially outsourced our attention.
Yeah.
Like, we have the most advanced productivity tools in human history right in our pockets. But the default state for most professionals is still chronic distraction and this underlying anxiety.
It's just a constant hum of stress.
Exactly. So the goal of this deep dive is to map out Foreau's framework for reclaiming that cognitive real estate. We're looking at how to systematically strip away the noise so you can actually hear yourself think.
Look, we all know the absolute basics of Stoicism, right?
Yeah.
Control what you can, let go of the rest.
Yeah, the classic mantra.
You have probably heard it on 100 different audio shows or seen it printed on a corporate motivational poster in the break room.
Oh, totally. With a picture of a mountain.
Right. But Foreau takes this really familiar concept and turns it into a diagnostic tool. It is not just about managing your temper when someone cuts you off in traffic.
That's right.
It is about auditing the architecture of your entire day.
Because knowing the concept and actually executing the concept are two vastly different things.
So true.
The reason it is so incredibly difficult to let go of external outcomes, like what your boss thinks of a presentation or how the market is going to react to a product launch, is deeply rooted in how our brains predict threats.
Oh, interesting. So it's biological again.
Exactly. We are biologically wired to obsess over variables we don't control because, evolutionarily speaking, failing to predict a threat meant you were taken out of the gene pool.
So what does this all mean? It's like complaining about a rainstorm instead of just grabbing an umbrella.
Right, yeah.
You have zero control over the clouds, but you have 100% control over whether you get wet. So when we obsess over the tone of a client's email, our brain is treating it like a predator in the bushes.
That's exactly what's happening internally.
We are tying our emotional state to an outcome we literally cannot dictate. It is like handing the remote control to your emotional state over to a complete stranger on the subway.
That is a highly accurate way to visualize it.
You're giving up all your agency and just hoping they don't change the channel to something that makes you miserable.
Right, and the friction happens because fighting reality, demanding that the stranger hand the remote back, or demanding that the world operate according to your own personal preferences, that generates massive amounts of metabolic waste in the brain.
Like it literally burns physical energy.
Yes. Your prefrontal cortex functions very much like RAM in a computer.
Okay, I like that analogy.
When you keep 50 background tabs open, constantly running simulations of things you cannot control, you literally starve your brain of the glucose it needs to focus on the task directly in front of you.
Which makes Foreau's mandate to accept reality much less about passive surrender and much more about, like, cognitive resource management.
Precisely. You aren't accepting reality because you approve of it.
Right. You're not saying it's good.
No, you are accepting it because denying it is too cognitively expensive. If the market crashes, it crashes.
Screaming at your monitor that it shouldn't have crashed doesn't change the numbers.
Exactly. It just bankrupts your energy reserves.
And this is where taking absolute responsibility comes into play, isn't it?
Yeah. Foreau argues that the moment you blame external circumstances, the economy, your unpredictable coworkers, the algorithm, you are actively choosing to leak that cognitive energy.
You're just leaving the tabs open.
Right. Taking responsibility is the act of closing those background tabs. It reclaims the RAM.
So you stop asking, why is this happening to me?
And you start asking, what is my optimal next move given these exact parameters?
Okay, so we've stopped bleeding energy by obsessing over the uncontrollable. We have the RAM back. But now we run into a major systemic issue.
Which is?
The modern external world is literally designed to steal that RAM right back from you. Attention is a vacuum, and billion-dollar companies have built extremely sophisticated tools to fill it.
Yeah, they really have. Focus, in Foro's view, is not something you achieve by adding a new productivity hack or downloading some focus timer.
Oh, wait, really?
No, it is entirely a subtractive process. The overarching philosophy here is that simplicity is power. Complexity breeds cognitive friction.
That makes sense.
When your life is cluttered with trivial commitments and constant digital interruptions, your core goals are just suffocated.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting, but also a bit tough, so I have to play the skeptic on behalf of everyone listening.
Fair enough. Go ahead.
Eliminating distraction sounds great on paper, especially if you're on a meditation retreat.
Right.
But practically, isn't that incredibly difficult when our entire professional and social lives are tied to our smartphones?
It is difficult, yeah.
Like, when my boss messages me on Slack at 8 at night, curating that notification might cost me a promotion. How do we simplify without totally unplugging from society?
That is the exact trap most professionals find themselves in. We conflate responsiveness with effectiveness.
Oh, that's a good distinction.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, simplicity is not about ignoring your boss or taking a vow of digital silence.
Okay.
It is about intentional curation. It is a strategic reduction of the unnecessary, so your core goals aren't suffocated by endless scrolling. You have to recognize the profound difference between the noise that threatens your livelihood and the noise that simply feeds your dopamine loops.
Okay, but where is that line? Because the anxiety tells me everything is a threat to my livelihood.
Of course it does.
If I don't respond to the group chat, I'm out of the loop. If I don't check my email, I miss a massive opportunity.
The line is defined by proactive communication and boundary setting, which is ironically something you can only do when you aren't overwhelmed.
That's a catch-22 right there.
It really is. But think about it. If you reply to a Slack message at 8 o'clock at night, you are training your ecosystem to expect 8 o'clock replies.
Oh, man. Yeah.
You are volunteering for the noise. Intentional curation means selectively engaging. It is auditing your inputs to ensure that your deep work isn't constantly interrupted by shallow emergencies.
So it's less about throwing the smartphone into the ocean and more about treating your attention like a VIP club with a very strict bouncer.
I love that, yes.
You're not shutting down the club, you're just actually checking IDs at the door. If it's the CEO with a legitimate crisis, they get in.
Sure.
But if it's a random social media notification or some email thread your CC's on just for visibility, the bouncer turns them away.
Precisely. And establishing that bouncer takes upfront effort. You have to endure the initial discomfort of letting minor fires burn while you focus on what actually moves the needle.
Because it does feel uncomfortable at first.
Oh, definitely. You are curating your environment so that the path of least resistance naturally aligns with your most important work, rather than algorithmic distraction.
All right, so the bouncer's at the door, the club is relatively quiet, we've cleared the space.
Yep.
But even with a clear space, there's a psychological trap we all fall into. How do we fill that empty space to achieve a meaningful life? We try to execute on our priorities while simultaneously obsessing over past failures or future anxieties.
That is the big question.
How does Foro suggest we decouple our current actions from that kind of temporal baggage?
This is where we transition from defensive maneuvers to the actual engine of action. The space you've cleared will just fill right back up with anxiety if you don't define your priorities.
Right.
But to your point, defining priorities isn't enough if you aren't mentally present to execute them. Foro emphasizes that living in the present is not a spiritual luxury. It is a tactical necessity.
Because the brain is a time-traveling machine. Right.
Exactly.
We spend half our day ruminating on a conversation we had 3 years ago in the shower, or projecting a worst-case scenario for a meeting next week.
And returning to the RAM analogy, rumination and projection require massive computing power.
They drain the battery.
They do. The past is unchangeable data, and the future is an unwritten simulation. The present moment is the only intersection where your agency can actually alter reality.
Wow, that's powerful.
When you drag the past or the future into the present, you are severely diluting the impact of your actions today.
So what does this all mean for daily execution? Because it's one thing to say just be present, and it's another to actually do it when your mind is racing.
Oh, absolutely.
How do we anchor ourselves in the present when the brain wants to time travel?
It requires a fundamental shift in how we view discipline. We have this culturally ingrained idea that discipline is a form of self-punishment.
Yeah, we picture a drill sergeant yelling at us to wake up at 4 in the morning to run in the freezing rain.
Right, exactly. But Foro reframes discipline as the operational mechanism of presence. Motivation is a feeling, highly dependent on your dopamine levels, how much you slept, or what you ate for breakfast.
It's fickle.
Very. Discipline, on the other hand, is an action independent of feeling.
That makes a lot of sense. Motivation is like a sugar rush.
Yeah.
It burns hot and fast, but you inevitably crash. Discipline is more like a slow-burning carbohydrate.
That's a perfect way to look at it.
It seems like defining your priorities is drawing the map, living in the present is the act of walking the path, and discipline is simply putting one foot in front of the other every single day, even when your legs are tired.
That is a brilliant analogy. And if you look closely, discipline isn't a punishment. It's an act of deep self-care.
Self-care. Wait, really?
Yes. When you practice discipline, you are essentially doing a favor for your future self.
Yeah.
You are building a sturdy bridge between the priorities you've intellectually defined and the reality you want to inhabit. You do it regardless of the weather, regardless of the noise, because you have accepted that consistency is the only reliable metric of progress.
Okay, let's look at the horizon then. If you, listening right now, actively apply all these principles, if you control your reactions, embrace simplicity with that VIP bouncer, and practice this disciplined self-care, what is the ultimate destination? Where does this lead?
Foro identifies two ultimate intersecting payoffs: profound inner peace and continuous growth.
Okay.
And the inner peace he describes originates entirely from within. It is utterly detached from external success, validation, or shiny possessions.
Which ties perfectly back to controlling what you can. If your sense of peace requires the world to behave in a certain way, you're always vulnerable.
Always.
Building inner peace means sourcing your stability from your own character, the things nobody can hack, fire, or steal from you. But this brings up a massive philosophical dilemma for me.
This raises an important question, I'm sure. Let's hear it.
If I am completely at peace, if I accept reality exactly as it is without needing external success, doesn't that inherently kill my motivation?
Yeah.
Why would I go through the agony of building a business or writing a book or trying to achieve anything if I'm already perfectly content just sitting quietly in my living room? It feels like inner peace and ambition are mutually exclusive.
It's a very common pushback, and it gets to the very heart of how we misunderstand drive. People often equate ambition with anxiety.
Right.
We assume that if we aren't terrified of failure or desperate for validation, we just won't do anything at all. But that brings us to Foro's final principle: keep improving.
Okay.
Inner peace does not mean stagnation. What changes is not the output, but the actual source of the motivation.
So how do you pursue continuous improvement without tying your ego to the outcome?
By shifting from away from motivation to toward motivation.
What does that mean?
Well, when you lack inner peace, you are driven by a deficit. You are running on a treadmill, chasing external achievements because you believe they will finally make you feel whole. You are running away from inadequacy.
Oh, I know that feeling well.
Right. But when you establish inner peace, you already feel whole. You don't need the achievement to validate your existence. Therefore, you are free to pursue excellence purely out of curiosity, joy, and the desire to see what you are truly capable of.
Wow. So it's the difference between studying for a test because you are terrified of failing out of school versus studying because the subject matter genuinely fascinates you.
Exactly.
You might get an A in both scenarios, but the internal experience of doing the work is completely different.
Spot on. You continue to grow and learn because the act of learning is intrinsically rewarding. You are playing the game because you love the mechanics of the game, not because your identity will shatter if you lose.
It just removes the desperation from your work.
It does. You can strive for greatness, but if the project fails, if that stranger on the subway changes the channel, your foundational piece remains completely intact because it was never leveraged on the outcome in the first place.
So what does this all mean for the person listening right now, sitting in traffic, or maybe walking the dog, looking at a calendar full of obligations?
Yeah, how do we bring this home?
Well, the ultimate promise of this deep dive material is a practical blueprint to massively reduce stress. By meticulously focusing only on what truly matters and auditing what you allow into your mind, you aren't just getting more done.
Mm.
You are unlocking a deeply meaningful and peaceful life.
And the key is to start small. Knowledge only becomes wisdom through application.
Right.
For you listening, I encourage you to pick just one specific area of your life today. Maybe it's a specific distraction, a recurring argument, or a source of external stress at work.
Just one thing.
Just one. And apply the filter, do I control this? If the answer is no, practice taking your hands off the steering wheel, reclaim that RAM.
It's a powerful experiment. But, reviewing all these sources, looking at the implications of what Foru is arguing, it leaves me with a really provocative thought. Something for you to mull over as you jump back into the noise of your day.
Where does this lead us?
Well, if Foru's principles are entirely correct, if true happiness comes exclusively from within, and we must reject the pursuit of external possessions to find peace, what would happen to our modern society if everyone actually lived this way?
It would be a massive shock to the system.
It really would. Because think about it. Our entire global economy is practically built on our desire for external success,
Yeah.
our constant distraction, and our habit of buying things we don't need to temporarily soothe inadequacy.
That's the engine of consumerism.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if we all suddenly found inner peace and stopped needing those external fixes, would our entire global economy completely collapse?
That's a wild thought.
Can stoicism and modern consumer society ever truly, functionally coexist? Or is finding inner peace fundamentally an act of economic rebellion?
It forces you to wonder if true focus isn't just a personal productivity tool, but a radical rewiring of how we interact with the world at large.
It certainly reframes the stakes. So next time you feel the urge to hand over the remote control to your emotions, remember the bouncer at the door. Stay curious, keep focusing on what matters, and we will catch you on the next Deep Dive.